Yeah, thank you. While we're on the subject of military conflict, Meg, I'll come to your question in a minute, but I'd like to ask one from the great CBS radio correspondent, Peter Mayer. Great to have you here, Peter. What are your assessments of the Trump-Putin relationship, especially at this moment in the Ukraine conflict? What do you make of all the often outlandish Trump mixed messages, both to and about Putin and Zelensky?
My sense is that Trump wants very much to get a Nobel Prize. He wants to, people talk about him maybe running for the Pope. We have reached a point of, in my judgment, could be different, of utter insanity. There is something, again, in my judgment, profoundly wrong with our president, and he says strange things. And again, that leads to uncertainty. And that is terribly dangerous, particularly when he's working opposite a skillful former KGB person who is determined in his mind to recapture the glory of Mother Russia. And that can only be done if you have Ukraine. You can't recapture the glory of Mother Russia, of the Slavic world, with just Belarus and Belarus and Russia. It just doesn't work. And I think, Peter, that the crisis that we have today is leadership instability, despite the way it looks, on both sides, which is a formula for danger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. Once again, I agree with Marvin. And I think what we've got is, with the American president, a guy who thinks that you can, have a deal, strike a deal with the other person because you manipulate him, which I think President Trump has been trying to do. Be nice to Putin, be mean to Zelensky. Kind of be nice to Zelensky, be a little mean to Putin. But a lot of it is rhetorical when it comes to Russia, and it's reality when it comes to Ukraine. I think Putin looks at Trump, and this goes back, Putin has read the case file from the 80s when Trump was there trying to build a hotel and, being a businessman, et cetera. I think they know who Trump is. And I share much of what Marvin is saying. I think, they've studied him. They always do, we do the same thing. Psychological studies of who this guy is. And he, as Putin looks at him, I think Putin looks at Trump as a person without a lot of historical knowledge about the world and what makes things important. Putin looks at history, and it is very important. He says, he reads books. He justified Ukraine with an historical treatise that was gigantic, and it went back, thousands of years. So they're fundamentally looking at the world in different ways. Trump is much more simplistic, and not to say that Putin is an intellectual, but he's a smart man. He really is a smart person. And so with the KGB training, I think he is doing everything to manipulate Trump. And, sending the portrait back with Witkoff. Oh, how lovely, a portrait of the president. He knew that would go over well. He says things, but he's always very careful. He lets other people, like the former President Medvedev, say all the nasty, weird, crazy stuff. It's all manipulation. And that said, the American president has a much bigger economy, has a much bigger army with NATO, and is much more powerful. So Putin will play it as long as he can. And, we'll have to see. I honestly don't know where we're going with Ukraine, but it is fascinating. I'll just add one other thing that I was thinking about. When you look at the game that they're playing, Peter, I think we have to remember that each person has a domestic audience that they also are playing to. So Trump, there's no question. We know about his domestic audience and MAGA, et cetera. Putin, the Kremlin does a lot of polling. The Kremlin actually is interested in what people are saying. So Putin can't look like a weakling who is influenced by the American president. So he's got a kind of a more complicated game. He has to look strong to his own people, but he can't overplay his hand, although he does and will overplay his hand with the American president. It's really interesting to watch.
Just one quick addition here. Who are the people around President Trump who know anything beyond what they read in the newspaper about Russia?
No one.
We are surrounded by people who may mean well, but know very little about Russia. We don't have reporters there for very good reason. Russia comes through one-dimensionally to people who do not understand that it is composed of many dimensions. And that is a scary thing for me. Mr. Witkoff might be the greatest real estate guy ever in New York, but that doesn't make him the negotiator for Russia and the Ukraine war, for Iran. I mean, come on. It's madness.